The arrival of the unknown. The vast expanse of space stretched out, silent, and seemingly endless. A small, isolated research station sat in the depths of the Andromeda expanse, a corner of the galaxy so remote that even the most advanced explorers of Earth had barely scratched the surface. Inside the station, the atmosphere was tense. Dr. Emily Carter, a brilliant astrobiologist, paced the control room, her eyes flicking nervously from one monitor to the next. "Status report," she called out, her voice steady but laced with concern. Her colleague, Dr. Rohan Patel, was glued to the communications console. "We're picking up strange signals," he said, his brow furrowing. "They're not like anything we've encountered before. They seem structured, almost like a message." A chill ran down Emily's spine. The remote station had been set up to study microbial life forms in the asteroid belt, but it now found itself on the verge of something far more significant. No one had expected this, a first contact scenario. As the data flooded in, a pattern began to emerge. It wasn't random noise. It was deliberate. She turned to Rohan. "Is it from Earth?" "No," he replied, his voice barely a whisper. "It's not from any Earth-based signal. This is something else entirely. Something alien." The station's AI, known simply as Orion, suddenly spoke up. "I have detected the presence of multiple objects entering the outer atmosphere. Approaching trajectory confirmed as non-Earth origin." Emily and Rohan exchanged a look. The room seemed to close in around them. What they were facing was no longer just a scientific anomaly. This was something far greater, a potentially catastrophic event. "Orion, can you track their movements?" Emily asked, trying to steady her voice. "Tracking," Orion responded. "Objects are of unknown design. Based on their speed and approach, they are not using conventional propulsion methods known to human science." Emily quickly turned to the display showing the incoming objects. They appeared as shimmering, angular shapes, like shards of glass caught in the light of distant stars. They moved with unnatural grace, cutting through space as if unaffected by the laws of physics that governed human technology. As the objects drew closer, a series of strange symbols began to flash across the screen, symbols that were entirely unfamiliar. The comms panel lit up, and a voice, deep and resonant, broke through the silence. "This is the Galactic Council Peacekeeping Force. Earth Colony Station 57. You are under our jurisdiction. Stand down and prepare for inspection." The words sent a jolt through Emily's body. Galactic Council. She had heard of them in passing. Rumors of an intergalactic organization that oversaw peace and order across the galaxy, but she never imagined it would come to this. She quickly glanced at Rohan. The look on his face mirrored her own disbelief. "Do they think we're just going to surrender?" Emily whispered. Before Rohan could respond, another voice crackled through the speakers. "This is an official warning. Your colony's activities are in violation of Galactic Council law. Prepare for our arrival. Resistance is futile." The message was clear, cold, and undeniably authoritative. Emily's heart raced. For the first time in her career, she faced a force so far beyond humanity's reach, so far beyond her understanding. How could Earth possibly stand up to an organization that governed the galaxy? But Emily knew one thing with certainty. Humanity didn't kneel to anyone, not even in the face of overwhelming odds. "We can't just give up," she muttered, more to herself than to Rohan. "Agreed," he said, his eyes sharp with determination. "We'll fight. Whatever this Galactic Council is, they'll learn the hard way. Humans don't know how to surrender." As the alien ships drew closer, a feeling of unease settled over the station. But alongside it, a spark of defiance began to grow. Emily's mind raced as she began to formulate a plan. They had their backs against the wall, but Earth had something the Galactic Council couldn't anticipate: human ingenuity. If there was one thing humans excelled at, it was turning impossible situations into triumphs. The countdown to the inevitable confrontation had begun. Emily turned to Rohan and Orion. Prepare the station's defenses. We're not giving up without a fight. Outside the station, the alien ships continued their approach, their strange forms now visible in the void of space. They were a symbol of something far greater than any of humanity's technological achievements, something that could crush them with a single move. But Emily knew one thing for sure. Humanity's true power wasn't in its technology. It was in its spirit, and they would fight for that spirit until the very end. The unexpected rebellion. The hum of the station's power systems was the only sound as Emily and Rowan prepared for what was coming. Outside, the alien ships moved steadily closer, their forms now unmistakably defined against the darkness of space. But within the station, there was a nervous energy, the kind that only came before something truly unknown. Emily, if this Galactic Council is really as powerful as they claim, are we prepared for what's coming? Rowan asked, his fingers dancing over the keyboard as he tried to access any available data on the alien vessels. Emily's gaze was fixed on the monitors, where the ships were now just minutes away from reaching the station. Her mind raced through their limited options. Earth's technology was far from the advancements these aliens had, but the human spirit, an unyielding force that had carried them through centuries of adversity, was something that couldn't be measured on a galactic scale. She clenched her fist in determination. We might not have their ships, Rowan, but we have something they don't. We have the will to survive. That's what makes humanity dangerous. Her words weren't just for Rowan. They were a mantra she had internalized over the years. Every moment of hardship, every war, every disaster, had shaped humanity into a species that simply refused to bow down. If the Galactic Council thought Earth was going to surrender, they were sorely mistaken. As Rowan continued to work, Emily's thoughts drifted back to the first few months of the station's establishment on the edge of the galaxy. The purpose had been simple: explore the unknown and find new life, perhaps even new allies. But now, the situation had shifted entirely. What was meant to be a scientific outpost was now the last line of defense for a planet that had no intention of submitting to anyone. The comms console beeped, bringing her back to the present. "Emily, they're asking for our compliance again," Rowan said, his voice tight with tension. "Their message says they will begin the inspection process in 5 minutes. They're demanding immediate cooperation. They don't seem interested in negotiation." Emily's heart quickened. "Then we'll make them negotiate," she replied firmly, staring at the screen where the alien ships were now just a few kilometers away. The station's defensive systems were rudimentary at best, designed to fend off space debris and the occasional asteroid, but not an advanced alien fleet. She quickly keyed into the station's communications panel, sending out a broadcast to all the personnel on board. "Listen up, everyone." Emily's voice rang through the station. "We are facing an alien force claiming to be part of a galactic peacekeeping coalition. But make no mistake, we will not surrender. We stand as one. Earth will not fall." Her words were met with a chorus of agreement from the station's crew. The miners, researchers, and technicians, despite their fear, were ready. They knew what was at stake, not just their lives, but the future of humanity. Rowan turned to her, his face pale but resolute. "Emily, what's the plan? We don't have any weapons powerful enough to stop them." "We don't need to stop them," she said, her voice steady. "We just need to delay them long enough for Earth to respond. We'll send a signal for reinforcements, and if they want to inspect us, we'll give them the most interesting inspection they've ever had." Rowan raised an eyebrow, not sure whether to laugh or be alarmed. "Interesting how?" Emily smiled, a spark of defiance in her eyes. "We have nothing to lose. It's time to show them exactly who they're dealing with." The alien ships were now in orbit above the station, their sleek, metallic forms gleaming ominously under the distant light of the stars. Emily watched as their ships began to extend enormous, long-reaching docking arms toward the station. It was clear they intended to board. "Orion, can we jam their communication systems?" Emily asked. "Negative. Orion replied, its monotone voice devoid of emotion. The alien technology is too advanced for our systems to interfere effectively. Emily cursed under her breath. With no way to disrupt their communications, she had to think fast. Then we'll have to give them a taste of their own medicine. Rowan, are all the exterior vents secured? Yes, he replied. But why? Good. I need you to manually override the external vent systems. I want to make them think we're preparing to launch our own fleet. Emily's mind was working at full speed now. We can't defeat them head-on, but we can make them believe we're more of a threat than we are. Let's make them hesitate. Rowan's eyes widened. That's crazy enough to work. It's our only option, Emily said, as she moved swiftly to the console. We make them second-guess every move they're about to make. If they think Earth has an overwhelming response ready, they might reconsider their approach. With the plan set in motion, Emily quickly tapped into the station's power grid and directed the maximum amount of energy into the external vent systems. The result would be a bluff, an illusion of imminent battle readiness. Rowan worked alongside her, his hands moving quickly to release the station's emergency flares and ignite the docking arms. It's done, he said. We should see results in a few seconds. The room fell silent as they watched the display. Seconds passed like hours. And then it happened. The alien ships paused their approach, their docking arms retracting just slightly. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give Emily hope. They're hesitating, she said quietly, almost to herself. We've got them on the back foot for now. Let's hope Earth can pick up the signal soon. In that brief moment, Emily realized something. It wasn't the technology or the weapons that would define humanity's fate in the galaxy. It was the ability to adapt, to outthink, and to never back down, no matter the odds. Humanity was still far from perfect, but it had something the Galactic Council couldn't predict. It had the will to fight when all seemed lost. The art of resistance. The tension aboard the station was palpable. Despite their best efforts, Emily knew they couldn't afford to delay the inevitable for much longer. The alien ships were still hovering just outside, their powerful engines sending ripples through the station's gravity. It was only a matter of time before they would land, and Emily had to make sure her team was ready for whatever came next. Rohan, Emily said, her voice steady but urgent, can you pull up any communication logs from the other Earth stations? Anything that might give us an edge. Rowan nodded, his fingers flying over the console. I'm trying, but it's hard to crack their encryption. These aliens seem to be one step ahead in terms of technology. Still, there might be something in the old communication channels we can exploit. Emily watched as Rohan worked, his brow furrowed in concentration. She had to admit, he was the smartest person she knew. If anyone could find a way to level the playing field, it was him. As Rohan continued to hack through layers of encryption, Emily looked around the control room, taking in her crew. They were an eclectic group, each with their own strengths, but now, in the face of such an overwhelming force, those strengths were their only hope. She had no illusions about their chances. They weren't going to win a battle of firepower. But if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was finding unconventional ways to survive. Any progress? She asked, turning back to Rohan. Almost there, Rohan replied, his fingers pausing as the screen flickered and a series of ancient communication logs appeared. Wait a second. This could work. Emily leaned in, her heart pounding. What is it? This, Rowan said, highlighting a series of messages. Years ago, an Earth research station had a similar situation with a hostile force. They didn't have the firepower to fight back, but they did something that made the aliens pause. They used a mix of psychological tactics, confusion, fear, and unpredictability. It was enough to make their enemies second-guess their approach. Emily's mind raced. Psychological tactics. You're talking about creating doubt, making them question their superiority. Exactly, Rowan said, his eyes lighting up with realization. It wasn't about matching their technology or firepower. It was about making them think that humanity was something more dangerous than they had anticipated. The unexpected is the greatest weapon we have. A spark of hope flickered within Emily. This could work. It had to. We'll need to push the limits of what we know, Emily said. Get ready to create the illusion of chaos. If we can make them think we're unpredictable, they might pull back long enough for us to turn this around. Rohan quickly started working on the communications network, sending out subtle signals designed to throw the aliens off balance. The idea was simple: make them feel like Earth was not a species to be easily dominated. They had to seem erratic, unpredictable, a species that couldn't be understood or controlled. Meanwhile, Emily turned her attention to the station's internal systems. She wanted to use everything at her disposal to make the station seem more alive and active than it really was. She accessed the visual simulations and began generating ghostly projections of people, holographic images that made the station appear far more populated than it actually was. The holograms would be subtle at first, flickering into existence in the background, but they could create an impression of resistance. Orion, activate the station's backup systems. We need the external systems to appear like they're malfunctioning. Flicker lights, failing equipment, that sort of thing. Just make it look like chaos is unfolding. Understood, Orion replied without hesitation. Within minutes, the station was transformed. The once peaceful, orderly research facility now looked like a place on the brink of collapse. Warning lights flashed sporadically, sending off erratic beeps, and the holographic projections of workers and scientists moved in chaotic, disorganized patterns. Rohan was busy tweaking the external communication signals, causing them to pulse erratically with bursts of static and strange symbols. To an outsider, it would seem like the station was fighting back, struggling to maintain control. This is going to be our biggest gamble yet, Emily said, her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her chest. We have to make them question their own certainty. We can't afford to act like we're desperate. We have to act like we're dangerous, unpredictable. With the station now in full chaos mode, Emily and Rohan took a moment to review their work. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to create doubt. And doubt was the key to surviving this encounter. Suddenly, a sharp ping sounded from the communications console, followed by the eerie, calm voice of the alien commander. Human station, you are attempting to resist, but you are failing. Stand down now, or we will take further action. Emily's heart raced, but she kept her composure. This is just the beginning, she muttered under her breath. We'll make them doubt us every step of the way. Ready for the next step? Rohan asked, his fingers hovering over the control panel. Let's take it up a notch, Emily replied. Prepare the visual distortion protocol. We need to make them believe they're not dealing with a simple research station. Rohan's fingers flew over the keyboard, activating the final phase of their plan. The station's external cameras began to display a distorted, warped version of the station. Its edges flickered, and the images began to blur as if it were a hologram itself. The illusion was perfect. Emily took a deep breath, steadying herself. Now, we wait. Seconds turned into minutes, and Emily felt the weight of the decision pressing on her. Would this psychological strategy work? Would the Galactic Council's fleet fall into disarray? Could humanity use its creativity, its unpredictability, to survive? The silence stretched on. Then, a new message came through, this one full of hesitation. Human station. We are analyzing the situation further. Stand by. Emily didn't need to say anything. The uncertainty in the alien commander's voice was enough. They had made the first crack in their seemingly impenetrable armor. Humanity had taken its first step in showing the galaxy that it was not a species to be underestimated. And for the first time in the history of the station, Emily felt the surge of something she hadn't expected to feel again in this lifeless corner of space. Hope. The shifting balance. The strange hum of alien engines reverberated through the walls of Station 57. The once tranquil environment was now alive with the sound of scrambling feet, the hum of communication devices, and the quiet tension of a crew preparing for the unknown. But in the control room, Emily stood still, her hands clenched into fists at her sides, as she watched the status monitors flicker in and out of focus. Her strategy was working. At least, for the moment. The last communication from the Galactic Council had been unexpected, hesitant, almost confused. The alien commander's voice, once so certain, had cracked with doubt. Humanity had never faced such a challenge before, and yet Emily knew in her heart that they were on the verge of turning the tide. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Rowan, who had been poring over more communications data, suddenly looked up, his expression grim. "Emily, the alien ships are adjusting their positions. They're starting to take defensive measures. It seems like they're trying to adapt to our tactics." Emily's heart skipped a beat. "So they're not backing down?" "No," Rowan replied, shaking his head. "They're recalibrating. It's like they're learning, adapting in real time to what we're doing." Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. The idea that these alien forces, with their advanced technology, could now learn from humanity's unexpected moves made her uneasy. It was one thing to be unpredictable. It was another for the enemy to anticipate your every move. "They're evolving faster than we thought," Rowan continued. "If we don't act quickly, our advantage will slip away." Emily stared at the distorted image of their station flickering on the monitor, the illusion of chaos still in play. They couldn't afford to wait. The station might look like it was teetering on the brink of collapse, but she could feel the pressure rising. The stakes had just been raised. "All right, let's change the game," Emily said, her voice steady. "We need to do more than confuse them. We need to disrupt their thought process entirely. If they think they can predict us, they'll catch us off guard. But if we make them question everything they know, if we create complete unpredictability, we just might survive this." Rohan looked at her, eyes wide with understanding. "You want to go further, push the limits." "Exactly," Emily replied. "It's time to show them something they haven't encountered before. They've never dealt with humanity. Not like this. We're going to make them question the very concept of logic." Rohan quickly set to work, modifying the station's systems even further. This time, the changes wouldn't just be visual or psychological. Emily had a bolder idea, a way to go beyond mere disruption. She had read about early human tactics in wartime history, strategies that involved manipulation of the enemy's own expectations, using the unfamiliar and the absurd to turn the tide. It was time for something unexpected. "We're going to simulate an entirely different kind of civilization," Emily said, her voice full of intent. "Something completely alien to them, beyond their comprehension." Rowan hesitated, then nodded slowly. "You want to make them think we're a completely different species, a species that doesn't operate like they expect." "Yes," Emily replied. "We'll create the illusion of multiple contradictory signals, culture, technology, everything. We'll change our station's profile so drastically that the Galactic Council won't know how to interpret it. They'll be left questioning if they're even talking to humans at all." Rohan worked rapidly, pulling up a variety of historical and fictional patterns from Earth's vast archive of art, literature, and cultural symbols. They began to reprogram the station's communication array, creating a mosaic of contradictory symbols, noises, and patterns, sounds that didn't make sense, images that distorted the very idea of coherence. The goal was simple: confuse them beyond belief. "Here goes," Rohan muttered as he triggered the system. The station's artificial intelligence began to transmit a bizarre array of symbols, a mix of human and alien languages, abstract shapes, and incomprehensible sounds. It was a signal that no species, no matter how advanced, could interpret immediately. Emily watched as the feedback loop began. The alien ships, previously hovering with precision, now seemed to shift erratically, unsure of what to do. Their command signals grew more erratic, more disconnected. Through the external cameras, Emily could see their movements becoming more hesitant, their once unified formations splintering into isolated pockets. She smiled grimly. Let them try to figure that out. For a brief moment, it seemed as if their plan had succeeded. The alien forces were scrambling to analyze the signals, attempting to decode them. Emily could see through the camera feed that the once confident alien commanders were now sending rapid, indecipherable messages to one another. But just as she thought they had gained the upper hand, the warning lights flickered again, and a new message appeared on the communication screen. This one was different, clearer, colder. We are aware of your attempts to confuse us. The Galactic Council does not tolerate such games. The voice of the alien commander came through, cold and threatening. If you continue this, you will face consequences far beyond your understanding. Prepare yourselves. Emily's mind raced. The alien forces weren't retreating, weren't faltering as she had hoped. Instead, they were tightening their grip, pushing back against the psychological warfare she had unleashed. The stakes had escalated beyond what she had anticipated. We need a new angle, Emily muttered. They're starting to see through us. It's time to hit them where it hurts, their egos. Rohan looked at her, brows furrowed in confusion. How do we do that? We challenge their authority directly, Emily said, a determined glint in her eyes. We force them to question the strength of their supposed empire. We show them that we're not just a primitive species to be dealt with. We are a force to be reckoned with, one that can make even the most powerful beings hesitate. Rohan nodded slowly. You want to force them into a position where they have to decide whether to push forward or back down. We make them question their dominance. Emily's lips curled into a faint smile. Exactly. Let's remind them that Earth has always been the underdog. And sometimes, the underdog wins. The unseen weapon. The station's lights flickered once more, casting long shadows over the control room. Emily stood in front of the console, staring at the live feed of the alien ships, their movements becoming more deliberate and calculated. Despite their earlier uncertainty, the alien fleet was reorganizing, no longer reacting to their confusion tactics with hesitation, but with precision. We've got their attention, Rowan said, his voice tight. But they're adapting faster than we can keep up. They've switched to a higher-level encryption. There's no way to crack it without drawing their focus. Emily's mind raced. The stakes were higher now. The aliens were learning at an extraordinary pace, and the moment of confusion they'd created was fading fast. If they didn't act quickly, the Galactic Council would launch an all-out assault, one that humanity couldn't hope to survive. But then, a thought struck her. The one thing the aliens couldn't predict, couldn't understand, was how deeply embedded the will to survive was in the human psyche. It wasn't just a matter of technology or weapons. It was about human ingenuity, creativity, and the capacity for unexpected action. Rohan, Emily said, her voice firm, we're going to change the rules of this game. What do you mean? Rohan asked, his fingers pausing over the console. Humans have always been able to adapt, to innovate when it seems like there's no hope. It's what we do best. We don't fight on their terms. We fight on our own. I have an idea, but it's going to take everything we've got. Rowan blinked, his face a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. What's the plan? Emily looked out the viewport at the shimmering alien fleet. We're going to use their own technology against them. How? Rowan asked, eyes widening. We've already thrown them off balance once with confusion. But now we'll use something they don't understand. Our emotions. Humanity's greatest weapon isn't just in how we think. It's how we feel. We need to make them confront the one thing they cannot predict. Rohan's expression shifted as he realized where Emily was going. You want us to make them feel something. How is that even possible? It's not about making them feel in the way we understand feelings, Emily explained. It's about exploiting their vulnerabilities, their arrogance, their certainty that they are superior. What if we could make them doubt not only their power, but their entire belief system? Rohan's hands moved quickly over the keyboard as Emily walked over to the central control panel. We'll send out a signal, a sort of emotional resonance, something that disrupts their logical systems. It won't be something they can analyze like a typical signal. It will be chaotic, primal. They'll be forced to confront the idea that the very concept of control is an illusion. That's a gamble, Rowan said, his voice filled with uncertainty. We're talking about sending an emotional signal that could make them question their entire worldview. How do we even begin to generate something like that? Emily paused, looking at Rowan with a knowing look. We can start with the simplest human emotion, the one that has shaped so much of our history. Fear, but we need to mix it with something else. Hope, dread, courage. All of these emotions make us human. And if we combine them in the right way, we can destabilize their understanding of us. Rowan stared at her for a long moment. And you think this will actually work? We don't have much of a choice, Emily said, her voice calm but resolute. We need to make them see us as something they've never seen before, unpredictable, emotional, and dangerous. With that, Rowan reluctantly began to access the station's energy systems. Emily watched as he began to reconfigure the central communication array, reprogramming it to emit a frequency that would distort and amplify the emotional patterns she'd requested. The process was delicate. Too much power could overload the system. Too little, and the signal wouldn't have the desired effect. Minutes passed in tense silence as Rowan worked, sweat beginning to form on his brow. Finally, he looked up. Ready. Let's hope this works. Emily nodded, and together they initiated the sequence. The station's massive arrays hummed to life as an invisible force began to spread outward, sending ripples through the fabric of space itself. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, a low guttural hum resonated from the alien fleet, the sound almost imperceptible at first, but growing steadily louder. The fleet began to shift and move erratically. Ships swayed as if they were caught in a storm, veering off course, their once steady formation now broken. The alien commander's voice crackled through the station's comms. What is this? What have you done? Emily stood tall, her pulse quickening with each passing second. We've done what you couldn't predict. We've made you confront something you'll never understand. The signal they had sent wasn't just about emotions. It was a destabilizing force, one that targeted the very core of what made the Galactic Council so powerful. Their unshakable belief in their superiority. What Emily had unleashed was not just chaos. It was a wave of doubt, a crack in the armor of the alien fleet's confidence. It wasn't just a battle of ships or technology anymore. It was a battle of belief. The alien ships began to move more erratically now, as if the very fabric of their control was unraveling. The once pristine vessels appeared to glitch and stutter in space, their previously calculated movements now chaotic. Commander, our systems are malfunctioning. One of the alien voices stammered over the communication channel. We can't control the fleet. The alien commander's voice was filled with disbelief, but there was something else in it now. Fear. You have unleashed something we cannot comprehend. Cease this at once, or we will be forced to retaliate. But Emily wasn't done yet. The emotional resonance wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Keep them off balance, Rowan, she whispered, her eyes gleaming with determination. Let's see how they handle a fight they never expected. The turning tide. The station had become a battlefield of a different kind. There were no laser blasts or explosions, no ships in flames or shields cracking under pressure. Instead, the battle raged in the airless expanse of space, a war of perception, emotions, and willpower. Emily watched the monitors as the alien fleet continued to shift unpredictably, their once perfect formations now fragmented, vessels drifting in erratic patterns. Rowan leaned over the console, his eyes wide with disbelief. It's working. They're falling apart, Emily. They can't handle the emotional resonance you unleashed. The alien fleet's ships were no longer in control of their trajectory. Some of them hovered in place, seemingly caught in some internal struggle, while others seemed to be pulling away from the station, their once synchronized movements now chaotic and hesitant. It was as if the very concept of order had begun to dissolve under the weight of the fear and uncertainty humanity had forced into them. Emily felt a grim satisfaction. The Galactic Council, a supposedly unshakable force, was now facing something they had never encountered before: human unpredictability. It was the ultimate gamble. But for the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself a moment to breathe. They might actually have a chance. But just as quickly, the feeling of triumph faded. The message that came next was not filled with fear or panic. It was cold, calculating. Human station, you have succeeded in disrupting our systems, but this will not last. You cannot sustain this trick forever. You are playing a dangerous game. The alien commander's voice was calm, yet tinged with a quiet, undeniable anger. The Galactic Council does not bend to the whims of chaos. Emily's hand tightened on the console. They knew their advantage wouldn't last forever. This was just a temporary crack in their confidence, a crack that could be closed if they didn't keep up the pressure. "We don't need to make them surrender," Emily said, her voice filled with quiet resolve. "We just need to make them believe they're facing a force too unpredictable to handle." "But how do we keep up this momentum?" Rowan asked, his face drawn with concern. "The emotional resonance can only disrupt them for so long. What's our next move?" Emily glanced at the monitors, a plan already beginning to take shape. It wasn't enough to just confuse them anymore. They needed to instill a deeper sense of insecurity in the Galactic Council's leadership. What would make the most powerful beings in the galaxy second-guess their decision to intervene with Earth? What could make them hesitate, even for a moment? Her mind raced back to a crucial moment in history, the moments before a great rebellion, when a seemingly weak force found the will to take on an oppressive regime. It wasn't just fear or confusion. It was something stronger: solidarity. The sense that the individual could stand up against the collective, that the whole could rise to defeat a seemingly invincible enemy. The answer came to her, and she turned to Rowan with renewed determination. "We show them our strength, not just as individuals, but as a united force. We use every bit of humanity's collective history to send a message that no matter how much they divide us, we will fight for each other, together." Rowan's eyes narrowed in understanding. "You want to broadcast our unity. Every moment of our history where humanity has risen against the impossible, come together as one. You're right. If they can see that, it might make them question everything they've believed about us." Emily nodded, already putting the plan into motion. "Exactly." The emotional resonance wasn't just a disruption, it was the first stage. Now, we'll show them the raw power of human spirit, our ability to unite and fight for something greater than ourselves. We will use their own tactics against them. We'll make them see how fragile their control is in the face of humanity's bond. As Rohan worked to reconfigure the station's communications array once again, Emily accessed the archives, pulling up footage from Earth's history, footage from great moments of defiance, resistance, and survival. She began to compile these moments: the rebellion against tyranny, the united fight against impossible odds, the countless stories of humans coming together when all seemed lost. These were the moments that had defined humanity's past, and they would be the foundation of their message to the Galactic Council. "Prepare to send the signal," Emily said, her voice filled with quiet determination. "We're going to show them something they can never anticipate: the unstoppable power of humanity when it stands united." As the footage began to play, Rowan broadcasted the signal, transmitting it to the alien fleet. The screen flickered with scenes from Earth's past: the storming of oppressive fortresses, the resistance movements that defy the odds, the faces of men and women standing together against overwhelming enemies. In a single unified broadcast, they showed the Galactic Council the history of defiance and survival. They saw humanity's spirit, its ability to rise again and again in the face of adversity. Emily watched the alien ships through the external cameras, waiting for their reaction. The fleet had now come to a complete halt. The ships drifted aimlessly, no longer advancing. It was as if the entire fleet had been struck by a sudden, shared moment of confusion. And then, a new message came through. Human station. This is unlike anything we have ever encountered. The voice was no longer angry, no longer filled with the authority of a supreme force. Instead, it was filled with uncertainty, fear, a hint of something they had never felt before, doubt. Emily's heart raced. They had done it. They had shattered the Galactic Council's confidence, the emotional resonance of humanity's strength, its collective unity in the face of impossible odds, had rattled their composure. For the first time in this confrontation, the aliens weren't in control. "Commander," came a voice from the fleet, shaking. We cannot fight them like this. They are not what we thought. They are something else entirely." The alien fleet was in retreat.